Hi, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have really inspiring conversations with artists living in and from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. Good morning. This week I am speaking with Ross Jones. Ross is a painter creating works that evoke a heady sense of nostalgia and elevated playfulness. I loved meeting Ross and chatting to him. We talk about Ōtaki on the Kapiti Coast of Aotearoa, where he grew up, and the things he loves about where he now lives at Snells Beach. He shares how he failed his first year studying art and design at Wellington Design School, only to return a year later and start the course again, gaining his degree 3 years later. Ross talks about how he likes to play with time and scale in his work, his love of incorporating toys from his childhood and also sourced from around the world into his paintings, how his previous illustration career informs his fine art practice today, and his love of using sketchbooks for organising ideas, experimenting and drawing. We discuss goal setting and how this has evolved into his 100 painting project, which started in 2009 and finishes in 2028, and also the final 50 painting project, which will start up after that and hopefully take him through to his early 80s. We explore why Ross doesn't like to paint New Zealand scenes, why he wouldn't enter an art competition, why he likes to paint one painting at a time, and only have a solo exhibition every 2 years, and why he loves to paint his dog Alice, and why he won't paint yours. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Ross has some really interesting things to talk about, some things that we haven't even touched on in the podcast before, and he has lots of really interesting approaches to the way he works. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm enjoying the day. It's a gorgeous Friday, so it's nice to be out of the studio, and I don't often come to this part of Auckland, so it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's such a gorgeous day, and yeah, Friday's actually a good day to record because, you know, it's just about the weekend.
I work 6 days, so Fridays is a good day to be able to catch up on things, and especially if I need to do any chores. Friday is my chore day.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you work Saturday or Sunday?
I work Saturday is a great day to work because it's just a time to catch up in the studio and take care of any of the jobs which I haven't got around to during the week. So particularly with doing all my own limited editions, then I have packaging to make up and orders to get out, and it's a great time to be able to just catch up.
Yeah.
And it's quiet.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people are off doing other things and I can have the studio to myself, and Alice, our Labradoodle, is in there, and if she's not out being walked, but it's a nice time.
Speaking of dogs, the listeners might be able to hear Marley, who's trying to get in on the conversation.
Marley is fabulous.
Marley is misbehaving at the moment, barking away on the deck. Now, you were born in Ōtaki, which is just north of Wellington.
On the mighty Kapiti Coast.
Yes, and I actually discovered that. I think it was a couple of Christmases ago. We were down that way on summer holiday cruising, and there was a really terrible accident on the main highway there.
It's just tragic. That road has become so busy.
Yeah.
And it's not as if it's a dangerous road because it's a lot of straights, but for some reason, you know, it's just it's a dangerous highway.
It seems a strange place to have an accident. We were told that it was going to be hours, so we kind of went back and then went down to Ōtaki, which we'd never heard of, went down that road, and then came to the beach, and we were like, oh my God, this is just like this jewel of New Zealand that we had never heard of. Yeah.
So Mum and Dad still live in the same house I grew up in, so as they've been there coming up 50 years. Wow. And they shifted there in the early 70s, and I would have been 8 or 9 years old. And we live about a kilometre away from the beach. And we had a fabulous childhood in the 70s and early 80s. Ōtaki was a very different town back then. And like all small towns, there were all the shops that you needed were simply in the main street. So you could do your Christmas shopping. Once a year we would go into Wellington with the school, and you'd go to all the local, to the museum and the zoo. But Ōtaki had everything we needed.
It's so beautiful.
And between the beach and the mountains, it's there's a lot to be had for that lifestyle. Yeah, for sure. It has a wonderful climate as well. One of the things I do notice about going home is the amount of market garden land which is now in housing. So you as kids we would go with mum and go to the local veggie places and get all of our greens locally grown, wow. Plums and all sorts of things. But those gardens are slowly disappearing, which is, I think it's a tragic thing for small towns when that happens. But the Kapiti Coast is fast becoming a retirement place as well.
Really?
So yeah. And the place is changing because the road into Wellington now, the highway's running and you can get in there in 50 or 60 minutes. But the town that I remember, and the small town of 5,000 people from the 1980s, it was a place where you knew everybody, and my grandparents were there, and I could go back 2 or 3 generations and see our grandparents' home and their old farm, and that our family now has shifted away, so we don't have that same, there's not the same pull there.
That sense of history is so lovely. Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Muriwai community. I mean, we're smaller, I think it's only 1,500, but just that community, sense of community. Yeah. And when we were there actually in Ōtaki, we were in the supermarket, and George, my husband, who loves talking to people, he got chatting to a local on the beach, and then we saw him in the supermarket. Yeah. And he was like, come back, come and stay, park your bus at our place, I'll give you a feed, and, really, really friendly and lovely.
Do you know, one of the things that would happen is on a Saturday and a summer's weekend, Mum would take myself and my brother, and there'd be 2 or 3 other kids. She would drop us off at the bridge on State Highway 1, and then we would float down to the river mouth in old tyre tubes, and it would take the afternoon to do it. We would have been 12 or 13 years old, and it was just like a great way to spend a sunny Saturday afternoon. And we wouldn't think there was anything wrong with it. We'd just get dropped off at the bridge. And
how great.
Just casually swim in the water holes. And
a good thing for your mum to do when you were getting annoying. Into the river.
And I think the quote was, don't come home if you drown, otherwise I'll kill you. The 70s were just, it was a different pace of life.
It really was.
For sure. And I think I go back, and that's probably one of the things I like to get into my paintings, is that sense of time, that to capture a memory or a feeling from a period in your childhood is really special. And there's several paintings which I bought toys from my childhood into, but also a painting of the beach, which was only between the flags, which is, even though we lived close to the beach, we spent most of our time in or around the river. The river felt a safer place to swim than the beach. So, but the Ōtaki Surf Club, is famous for teaching young people how to swim and be safe at the beach, which was a big thing.
And to understand the surf.
Yeah, and, to respect the surf. I think it's not until you live close to a body of water like that you start to understand how it can change so fast.
Yeah.
And to be dumped in the waves and, come out exhausted but still have a fun day, you earn a healthy respect for the water, which I think, somehow we've lost that over the years. Even though we're so close to the beach, we tend to take it for granted. So
yeah. So now you're living in Snells Beach, which is north of Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland, on the east coast, a little bit gentler. How do you find it? What do you love about that place?
We probably shifted up there a few years earlier than what we thought. We were living in an apartment just off K Road, right in the centre, and it was just fantastic. You'd walk out the door and there was food and people, and it was just a really vibrant place to live. Noisy, chaos, it was a lot of fun. And then the opportunity to shift north came up, and we thought if we didn't do it back in 2020, then we would miss the opportunity. And we ended up, we bought the house off the plans, and were lucky enough to shift in the day before the second lockdown.
Really?
And literally, my partner Jo went out and got the biggest truck that she could drive legally, brought it home. We got packers to pack it, and then we just moved that day. So we had a great opportunity during that lockdown. And even though it was 4 years ago, I think there's a generation of us that it'll always seem like yesterday. And we could shift into our new house and really enjoy it. So,
and you're 5 meters from the beach?
Pretty much at high tide, we're 5 meters from the beach, so we can look out and see eagle rays in the water, because it's such a shallow beach, Snells Beach. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's not as popular as other beaches. You've got to go out a long way to be able to swim. But for the actual, for the fish and for the birds and just the peace and quiet that you get there is fabulous. And now that the motorway has arrived, the whole area feels like it's opening up. So again, the quiet tranquility of Snells and the beaches around there will gradually. We're at the end of the Auckland motorway now, so it'll grow in that same way. So.
Yeah, it's great that that beach, as you were saying, doesn't have dogs, which is quite unusual.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful breeding place for birds.
Yeah.
And you were telling me you've got a family of dotterels.
We've got the dotterels, which we expect the 3 eggs will hatch in the next week or so. And the goblets now have come back, and they've been back around a month. So to track their journey from here to Alaska and back is it's amazing. And they return, Snells is their holiday destination. So they breed over in Alaska, and the juveniles come back, and we're their holiday resort.
Isn't it amazing? And how far they can travel?
And every year.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, off birds and dogs and other things, let's get to talking about you, Ross Jones. Very fascinating practice you have. I can't wait to hear more about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were like as a kid?
I was the kid that doodled and daydreamed out of the window. And in my most recent painting, Daydreaming, which has Alice by the swimming pool looking at 30 tennis balls. The painting has 4,000 swimming pool tiles, and I worked out I could do 10 tiles an hour for 10 hours a day for 40 days. And that sort of set the pace of the painting, because there was also the tennis balls to paint and Alice in the bush behind. But I think as a kid, I loved challenges, and I wanted to, from a really early age, I just wanted to draw. And I think a lot of that stemmed out of I really struggled with subjects like English and math, particularly math. I'd sit down and look at the numbers, and the numbers would just literally move on the page, and it was such a frustrating thing, I think, as a kid to not be able to achieve in academic subjects. But I could as a default, I could draw and paint, and I used that as a way of working out how I could get out of Ōtaki and into doing something. And the trick, I think, in anything like that is to work out how you can make a living out of it. And for me, I focused very early on getting into the Wellington Polytech School of Design, and doing their 3-year course in visual communication. And so I set that as a goal quite early in my career, in my school career. I think from 3rd form or 4th form, that was me. That's what I wanted to do. So I went through school right to the 7th form and prepared a folio. And back in those days, you needed to apply to the school. They would take 36 people, and which were 2 classes of 18. And I was accepted, which was just fantastic. I couldn't believe it. And then I failed my first year. And it was a challenge, but I knew it was the thing I wanted to do. So I went out and that summer I got a job. I applied for a job as a paste up artist at Foodstuffs in Silverstream, and worked for a year doing paste up work for Foursquare and New World, and the Foodstuffs back then in Silverstream. It was a huge building which had offices, they had everything was there, and it had an art studio. And we made the artwork up the old-fashioned way with ball gum and made bromides. And during that year, I got to learn a trade. And so I reapplied, got back into design school.
Why do you think you actually failed in that first year? What happened?
I think I just got I was too much of a perfectionist. I really wanted to do the best possible job I could do all the time, which it can drive, probably if you go down that path, it'll drive you crazy. If a line's not straight enough and you want to keep on redoing something to get it better and better and better, I think that's a fraught path. So by failing and then going out and working for a year, I found my feet.
Do you think it was like a maturity thing? As well?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially coming from a small town and going to living in a student hostel, I probably had never had so much fun in my life. It was everything. I needed to catch 2 buses to go from Helen Larry Hall in Karori to be able to get to design school up in Newton in Cook Street, and I had to relearn everything. Just basic survival.
Yeah, and it's often the way when students sort of get away from mum and dad.
Everything
goes
living
wild.
in a student hostel was just
good.
It was crazy.
That's a really good idea, though. Actually, leaving and having a year of work and coming back.
I think I would, particularly now where education is so expensive. There's no rush to leave high school and go straight and do that. It never seemed like a very good path. 1, 2, 3 years away, it doesn't make any difference. And I think that's what I felt. If at the end of 40 years what would have made me happier to have gone off and done something else or gone back and repeated that year. It really was a no-brainer. And I never ever regretted that decision either. And going back and redoing the first year, I was out flatting. I went and got a job. I worked as a kitchen hand for Martin Bosley and at Jevenet in Willow Street. And I was probably the best fed student in Wellington. You know, I got to, for the first time, I smelt real coffee. I got to see Martin cook, which was just incredible. The dishes and it was a degustation menu. So as a dishwasher, I got to wash 5 sets of glasses or 7 sets of glasses. I'd never seen so many different glasses. And I also got to see advertising agency people come through that I could imagine I could do that. You know, I could have that lifestyle and go out to lunches and you know, 1987, what could go wrong? And of course it all went wrong.
Yeah.
You know, the crash and it was, I think it was really healthy to see both sides of that industry early on. And so the 3 years at design school went by way too fast. And I thought back then that I was lucky because I got paid to be there. You know, during that stage, there was still a really good government payment for students, and we didn't have fees.
You didn't have a big loan?
No loan. There was nothing. And I was working as well. So I worked all through the weekends. I got a job at Tip Top Bakery in Adelaide Road, and I could bring home fresh bread for the flatmates. They loved it, raspberry buns, and just the smell of fresh bread all the time was great.
Yeah.
So I'd actually, I came out of design school with money. I managed to save money during that period, and I landed a job from the exhibition with an advertising agency in Wellington, Ted Bates. And it was fantastic. I got out of design school. I had a job. Everything was going gangbusters. And 8 months later, the agency lost its largest client to Saatchi's, and I found myself unemployed.
Oh, no. So
I went as a freelance illustrator, and I took what I learned in at the agency and took my folio around Wellington. And at that stage, Wellington had a ton of agencies, and I made a living out of doing illustration work, which was fantastic. And the key thing, it was during the period where Apple were really making a huge impact in agencies. So studios were going through a rapid period of change, and it was also starting to impact on how illustration was being done as well. So I went from a period of doing everything traditionally to slowly learning how to make work in Photoshop, producing illustration within Photoshop and Illustrator. And I worked out that I enjoyed doing things by hand more than on the computer. And even though illustration was a great lifestyle, and I thoroughly enjoyed the 15 years that I did it, it was more rewarding painting. So there was a slow transition between working out how I could go from illustration into painting.
And that was something that you had always planned that was going to happen?
I think it was more of a realization that I no longer enjoyed doing illustration work on the computer. I think that was key, working out that part of technology no longer inspired me. And also, it's like illustration it can be quite fashion driven or quite trend driven, and I also didn't enjoy that style of illustration during that period as well. So, and I couldn't see myself doing it as a long-term thing. And also, I didn't know how to make a living as an artist as well. So, and I didn't intend to become an artist. I'm not sure if anyone actually starts out and actually goes, when do you start to call yourself an artist? And I think this is a period where I set myself the goal of doing 100 paintings. I didn't think that it would take 20 years to get to 100 paintings. But, that's part of the goal setting that I really enjoy, And so to set the goal of painting 100 paintings, it seemed like a way of it becoming, what's the way? If I could get to the 100 paintings, I would have a body of work that I could look back on and say, this is what I want to do as an artist.
That's really interesting.
And, I think everybody can have a painting or a thing that they want to do, and you can achieve a fantastic result. But to be able to do it day in, day out, and to be able to get to 100 pieces, it has to have a real mindset to it, and it becomes a marathon. So it can't be a race. You can't just simply expect it to happen within a year. This has to be a slow evolution, and my style has evolved definitely over the past 15 years. But I can look back at it and say it still retains the same threads of what I wanted to achieve at the start. And now it's a really fulfilling, I don't want to say business, but what I do is really a fulfilling career, I think is a better choice of words.
Yeah.
Even though it still has to be, unfortunately, driven by making a living. And I think as soon as I mention the fact that I need to make a living out of it, then I think it's a difference between me as an illustrator and the arts. And I'm fine with making money out of my paintings. And I'm happy to sell each and every one. When I get to the end of it, that's it. I'm done with that, and it can be sold. And I'm not attached to it. It's nice to be able to see it, and I can put it up on the wall and through the period when it's prior to the exhibition. But I never ever have a sense of ownership on them, even though I own the rights to each and every one of them. And that's that business aspect as well. Is that they don't all have to sell, and if they sell, that's fabulous. But I still need to be able to do the next one and the next one and the next one. So
it's such an interesting original approach. It almost feels like that is the way that you sort of manage yourself. The 100 painting project is like your boss.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And when so people ask now, what happens when you get to the end of the 100 paintings? And then when I do get to the end, then I'm doing the final 50. So I'll be 62 when I get to painting number 100, and then the final 50 will take me through until all going well, it'll take me through to the late 70s, early 80s.
Wow. So you're doing another 50 after the 100.
That's the final 50.
Right. The final 50.
The final 50. So 1 in 100 and then the final 50.
Okay. So that 100 painting project started in 2009, as you said.
There was a bit of a backstory because all of a sudden at 2009 I had, I think, 8 or 9 paintings. So there was still sort of 2 or 3 years of working toward that. And I think the big change came in 2004 or 2005. I got the opportunity to put 2 paintings into the Smythe Gallery in Jervois Road. And as it happened, I'd actually met Kieran probably 20 years earlier in Wellington when he was running around back then doing his broadcasting thing back then. And there was an exhibition. I had 2 paintings in there, and it was the first time I'd ever put paintings up on the wall to sell. And the 2 paintings sold within within opening. So as soon as it opened, the 2 paintings had sold. And at that stage, I thought, I can make this work. And I went away, and at that stage started to plot and plan how I could take it further. So I started painting, and I still wanted to retain the basis of my illustration background, and I run my fine art practice the same as what I did as illustration. So I do concepts, I do a full final color visual, and I'll put that up on the wall, and I'll live with it for a few months to see if the concept works, and then from there I'll take it to a painting. So unfortunately, I've got more ideas than time to paint, and that, I think, when you get to that reality, then you start to realize that there's only a certain amount of time, and each painting takes 2.5 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months per painting.
That's a long time.
I don't want to make the paintings smaller to do more paintings. I work within a size that I think that the paintings need. Some of the paintings need to be at the 95 by 180. They just need that a bit larger, but 95 by 125 centimeters is a size that's comfortable, I think, for my ideas. And I can get lost in a zero paintbrush doing grass or whatever, and it has a rhythm to it. So I could do more paintings if they were smaller, but it's not part of my plan. I don't need to do more.
It's not the way you want to work.
No. And I think as an artist, you need to find your own way, your own voice, your own speed, your own style. And this is the style and the speed that I'm comfortable with, and I'm happy with it. So I don't need to change for other people.
No.
And I don't need to follow trends. One thing that I'm very aware of is I spent 15 years as an illustrator, and every Christmas it would get to the period where there'd be Christmas cards to draw, and everyone would want a pūtaka on a beach with a blue sky, with white sand, with whatever. And so now I never do commission work, and I don't paint New Zealand scenes as such. I want it to be a artist living in New Zealand painting, rather than being a New Zealand artist painting New Zealand scenes.
And a lot of New Zealand artists do respond to New Zealand.
Yeah, and that there's also a lot of people that do it way better than I could ever do it. So in that respect, finding your own way and finding something that works for you is important as an artist. You don't need to be drawn into specific subjects because that's what people expect.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I have a good following of patrons from all over the place. So as much as I appreciate looking around and seeing all the beauty that we have here, it doesn't need to be in my artwork.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. You are about to have an exhibition which is at Parnell Gallery, and that's your 2024 exhibition, and you have an exhibition every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
And this is going to be number 76 to number 84.
It seems like the closer I get to 100, the further away it gets.
Yeah, I bet. But it's just so, it's just such an interesting approach that I haven't really heard of before, that you're setting yourself these goals, and you will achieve those goals. You book in your exhibitions and you know that you have to have, 6 or 10 or whatever paintings made, which is interesting, that you're sort of creating something that is quite formal and needs to be obeyed kind of thing. It's helping with your discipline, I suppose.
It does help with discipline. And also the idea of getting to 100 paintings, I'll do a book which will tell the whole backstory about this project. It'll have the 100 paintings in there, and it's a nice way to catalogue the journey. And I think that I've been lucky enough with this period of painting where technology has allowed a really good way to document it as well, because all of a sudden the iPhone came along in the early 2000s, and we could all do photography much easier. The iMac allows me to keep the studio with technology, and I can update my website, and I try and keep in touch with my patrons regularly. The art world has changed so much, so rather than when you would have an exhibition, this would be the great reveal. Back in the day, you'd hang your work up on the wall and people would wait a year or 2 years to see work. Now, when I get a painting finished, I'll get it out to the social straight away, and people can see the progress and stay up to date with what I'm doing. And it's a good way for people to come along on the journey with me, which is what we want, you know, because even though there's a fantastic thing to wait a year or 2 years to show people your work, it's up there for 2 weeks and then it's gone. And even now for me, even though with the socials here, I spend all but 2 weeks of those 2 years in my studio doing my own thing. And then 2 weeks before the show, there's a fabulous run around to tell people about the work, and then there's a big build up for the show, and then you have the show, and then it's like done.
Yeah.
So I always have a painting on the go during the show, so there's no downtime. So I've started the new painting.
Number 85?
84.
84.
Painting number 84 is about to start, and it's a good way it means that I have a continuation to my practice. So, and also I work 6 months to a year ahead as well. So I know what the next 4 or 5 or 6 paintings are. Even though coming to painting 100, it's a dip trich or a triptych, and that could be 6 to 8 months on one painting. So these sorts of things, you've got to have a really good mental attitude to be able to keep on coming back in the studio day in, day out. Work, for example, with the 4,000 tiles, to be able to achieve it. So what I'll do is I'll cover half the painting up so it doesn't become overwhelming. So I'll work on the piece that I need to see, and just get a good rhythm within the water or within the grass or in the sky or whatever. But it's really easy to be overwhelmed in a large detail of the painting. So you need to be able to set yourself up not to fail.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
It's really easy for people to get to embark on a large scale project, and all of a sudden they get lost in the size of it rather than just taking off bite-sized pieces. And I'll get there in the end, but I just need to set myself achievable goals. So before I start work on a Monday, I have daily goals and weekly goals, and I can miss them, but I at least have an expectation of what I need to achieve, rather than getting all but 2 weeks from the show and stuff's not finished. And I never ever start a painting until I finish the painting. So I never have 2 paintings on the go.
Really?
It's only one at a time. And when it's done, I don't go back. So then I can just draw a line underneath it and say, maybe I wish I'd done things different during that, but I can catch that up next time. I think it's very easy for artists to become so locked up in trying to get the perfection to get that finished thing, but catch up next time. It's like it's okay to let things go.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's really interesting. And are you thinking of like the body of work you have for this next exhibition at Pānau Gallery, which starts on the 12th of November?
12th of November.
Which is what?
So close. I'm done though. So all the work is done.
That's so good.
Yep. So the work's in at the gallery now. I've got one piece at home which I need to get photographed so I can do the limited edition. And that's the other thing with having the background as an illustrator. I went out and bought a 12-color Epson printer. I manage all of my own printing. I outsource the photography to Heath at Ferron, and they do an incredible job. Their photography is the image capture is just outstanding. So, and it gets back to that technology thing of, for all paintings, everything's photographed. I have an archive, and it's so much easier now to be able to have that and have the rights to it and be able to make it available for limited editions. And I enjoy it. Limited editions are really a important part of my practice because they allow people to collect my work who can't afford to buy an original painting. And I have prints from other artists, and I really enjoy collecting prints. They're a meaningful part of the art world.
Yeah, definitely. So you have, is it 10 paintings?
8.
8 paintings.
There should be 10. There should be 10 in there, but 4 paintings are on the large size, which to me is 95 centimeters by about 180 centimeters. And that's as big as I can go in the studio. So, and they're a little bit more exhausting as well.
Yeah,
because the brushes don't get any bigger.
And are you, when you're preparing for that body of work, you're, as you said, you're only working one painting at a time, but are you thinking of a sort of overarching theme at all, or are they completely separate?
So, no, I work within 4 categories, I guess. One has become Alice, the Labradoodle. And she's in the studio and all around, but I think I enjoy painting her because she adds value to my story. And out of that, I've had people come and ask me to paint their dogs. And it's like, it's something I won't and can't do because I don't know. 1, I don't want to do commission work. And 2, I don't know their dog. It's like it wouldn't add any value. And I think that's an important part of, I could just carry on painting dogs forever. If you get something which people love, then you could very easily go down that track of just doing what sells. Dog paintings sell for sure. And I don't try, but every exhibition there seems to be at least one dog painting. But there's never going to be a time where there's going to be 8 dog paintings. But, you look around and that artists make a living out of that, and that's fine as well. And I think that also gets back to do what makes you happy, and if you want to paint dog paintings, then go for it. Paint what makes you happy. Don't paint what you think you need to. And, I don't enter awards. I don't chase that sort of recognition because it's something I'm just not interested in. I'm doing my own practice. I'm doing my own thing, and I don't need to have it validated by anyone else.
That's fair. And you don't see entering awards as another way to get your work out?
No, not at all. It's like, no, No. Quite happy just to stay in my studio,
Yeah.
do the exhibitions, and have people buy my work because they like it. And, if they like it, then that's a win for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
and your work does sell very well.
It sells fabulously well, but, I've never seen the point of the awards thing. It's just like any awards, even school awards. There was no, God, prize giving used to be stuck in those hard wooden seats, and I'd sit there and go, I just don't, there's no value in this. It doesn't, pulling a person out because I've achieved something or what, it doesn't add anything.
Yeah, and it's only the judge's opinion.
Exactly. But people get caught up in that, and that, I think that it's not a healthy thing to get wrapped up in.
It's a good conversation to have, because I don't think we've ever. No, none of my guests have ever spoken about awards in this way. Most people are quite into it.
Yeah, it has no worth. I think that's the biggest thing. It has absolutely no worth to me.
Yeah.
So.
And you're getting your work out there, to your audience, regardless.
Yeah. It doesn't. You don't need. I don't think we need that. We don't need to go down that track.
And do you feel like it's, when you look at some artists who say, this artist, they've been a finalist in this award, and they've been a finalist in that award, they've won that award. You don't think that that's sort of an affirmation of their talent?
No. And it's like using the word contemporary. It's like, it's just, as soon as I see that word, it's like, oh, seriously?
Really?
It's like, call me old-fashioned.
In what way?
I don't see the value of the word contemporary. There's not. If a word becomes so overused, then it's lost its meaning and value, and contemporary has well and truly worn away. Sure.
What do you see it as meaning?
It's almost like, as I think in advertising, it's a word you'd use in advertising. It's like, the food is tasty. Well, of course, the food is going to be tasty. It's going to have a taste to it. And I think contemporary is very much like that. There's got to be another word that comes around.
Contemporary, means of the time.
Yeah, but of what time? Everything's now, but last week, that was last week, or last year. And my work is the same as essentially as like 15 years ago. So if it was contemporary 15 years ago, how is it still the same?
So what do you call yourself, a painter?
I don't think it needs to have a label. I think there's, when you start to have to put a label on it, then it's like, it's part of advertising. I enjoyed the advertising career because of that, because you could label things and, delicious and fresh and fruity. And, it's very much part of that. And, I can also appreciate that that is part of the language, but, it certainly gets bandied around, doesn't it?
Yeah, so, it probably is overused.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Oh, this is good. Good, juicy conversation. Love it. It's good to have different opinions.
Oh, and that's what they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's everybody has got their opinion and take on things. And, that I think also, trying to be an artist, and that's the other thing I'm doing is I'm trying to be an artist, but, I still don't really know what that is. I don't know. I'm not sure when you arrive at that. When do you arrive at that point, and when you call yourself an artist? And I'm still practicing. I think I'm still trying to work out, what that means, or where that's going to take me. So, and I don't need to. I also don't need to arrive at that point where I am an artist. I can just carry on doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, so. It's just a title. It's just a word.
Yeah, it is. And you get you get a form through, and it asks you what you do, what your career is, and it's like, I get to that stage and go, what am I? What am I trying to do? So, a painter feels right. I think that definitely, like, painter, I think that sits with me comfortably. And I think that's where I am at the moment. So
yeah. So I want to go a bit deeper into your actual practice. You do have a very distinctive style. How would you describe it?
that's a tricky one, hey, because there again we're trying to label things, and we've gone past the stage where there's been the movements in the art world and the isms and the whatnot, but whatever it is, I've arrived at it, and it's it's not realistic. If you look into the actual images, they're a little bit stylized, but I don't think it needs. Again, it doesn't need to have it's painting. I think I'm a painter who paints, and when you try and describe something, it's like, how do you describe a green, or a color or a sound? They're really tricky, because you need to go, it's like, but it isn't. And that's what I've always found about commissions. Commissions, when people want a commission, they've seen a piece of your artwork that they've missed out on, and they want it kind of like that, but obviously you can't do it exactly like that. And I've had conversations with people say, like, that's even when I've sold out of prints. So when an exhibition gets up to number 49, then that's it. The print sold out. And I've had people email and phone me to say, can't you do just one for me? Can't we sneak in one more? No one's going to know. And it's like, there's so many ethical questions.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would never do that. And of course, but why would you ask that anyway? And people still surprise me. And
it takes away the value from the 49 people.
There's just ethical. There's a set of ethics that we need to live within.
Yeah. If I could sort of try to vaguely describe your work myself, you do use toys quite often in your paintings, and they are often landscapes in some form, aren't they?
Yeah.
You could say. And there is often water, whether it's a swimming pool or the sea. So how do you bring all of these things together, and how do you get started on an idea?
Where does it start? It all starts in the sketchbook to start off with. So everything I do starts off as a sketch. To move it forward from the sketch, I'll make a collage out of it, because it's still working on the disciplines of design that I learned at design school. So a lot of, when you look at my paintings, there is I hope that there's a underpinning of design in there. So I'm looking at scale within the paintings. There's an aspect of collage in there as well. So the image can be foreshortened. There's certainly a depth of field which is not natural there as well. So I'm not trying to create something that's real. What I'm trying to do is to tell a story in a way that can be visually seen all at once, and then you can go into the little details, and it's nice to be able to have a person look at the painting, stop, and then have to re-look at it. That's the win of the painting. It's really easy to walk past something and to let it go, but if you can stop and get them to re-look, and there's something in there for them, then that's the 1 in 100. That I don't expect everybody's gonna like my style, but if they can get the story, and if they can like one of the paintings in the 100 series, then for me that's the win.
Yeah. And you can tell it's the same painter making the work.
Yeah, and we all, when you make a mark, the style of the brushes that I use and the chisel brushes and the colors, there is a consistent style there, as well as a thread throughout the stories as well. So the particularly with obviously Alice in the swimming pool has become something which I've enjoyed doing,
and the tennis balls.
And that's just simply just looking at that dog and going, there's a tennis ball there again. And there could be one or two more paintings, but when she's gone, that's the end of that as well. So I'm not going to revisit that. And I think that is that story will come to a conclusion.
Yeah, which is kind of lovely.
And I hope that, she's 11 now, so I hope she's still around in sort of 4 or 5 years' time, so I can get to that 100. But,
and I wonder if you... Not that we like to talk like this about our beloved dogs, but if there was to be another dog after Alice.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not sure.
I wonder if you'd paint the next dog.
Or whether that story's done.
Yeah.
So definitely with the toys, I've still got several more threads or stories to go of that.
And where are these toys coming from? What's the relevance?
I've sourced those from all over the world.
So and you own the toys?
Majority of the toys, yeah.
Okay.
And I've got through buying through eBay and auctions, I've got to meet some really interesting people around the world as well. So some of the toys have come from Italy and England and the States, South America, and there's always a history behind the toys as well, which I find really fascinating. And I enjoy the toys because they're real. I can pick them up. They've been manufactured. They're printed, colored, manufactured. They're simple design with in some cases, a really complex mechanism inside. So we look at them and see two different things, that we look at it and see the simplicity of the toy, but the complex nature of the mechanism side. And also, toys are very much part of the history of the period. So, for example, the war toys from Germany in the 1930s, they were quite military driven, obviously, with what was going through the period of their time. And the 1960s in the States, they put out a lot of action man guns and that during the Vietnam War. So, it was a way to get boys holding guns. There's a whole story behind the psychology of war toys for the wider audience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We make them and we send them off.
Oh, it's a horrible thought, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
but that's that is how
that's the reality. And how do you decide on what toy you're looking for?
I think it's the story. I think that's that I enjoy going back to the design principles. I enjoy scale. And one of the things that scale allows you to do is to have a toy and join the toy in the world that it inhabits. And you get that sense of scale where what it's like to be a kid looking at a toy and seeing where that fits into their world. And I like that, I guess, how that contrasts between, for example, out in your garden when there's a robot sitting within the foliage and it's a painting coming up called Lost. And, that we did, how many toys as a kid did you lose out in the garden? Because we did lose little plastic soldiers were always being lost out there. And, then they'd be found. And they're a treasure to be found if they haven't been run over by the lawnmower or decapitated or whatever.
Yes,
So,
my two grandsons who are 2 and 3, they love throwing their toys off the deck into the garden.
Yeah.
Off they go.
But also, find like marbles underneath houses. There was always a thing when there was an old house that there would be marbles underneath there. So there's always treasures to be found.
Yeah, and always stories.
Yeah, there is. And it's also, I appreciate a lot of different styles and variety of toys, but there's just really a few that I'm interested in bringing into paintings. And then again, I don't want all the paintings to be about toys. So they're there because there's a story that I want to tell about that particular toy, or it helps me get some sort of concept across.
Is it a starting point for you, do you think?
It can be. But then that's also just one part of it, because it has to be in the right environment as well. And that's where I can have the enjoyment of doing the concept and the lighting and the environment, and that's when I can pull in the magic that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to put a toy up and to paint a toy, but there's so much more of the story than just that. So.
And your sketchbook is a very important tool for you to sort of help you create that story.
Yeah, this is, I think the magic happens in the sketchbook. There's a lot of time to be, I guess, put aside to enjoy just you can get your sketchbook and just relax. There's no rush. It doesn't have to be perfect. There could be page after page after page of just mindless scribble, and then all of a sudden an idea will come along. And it gets back to the thing where you see online artist sketchbooks, and each and every page is just a fantastic piece of artwork. And that can't be the reality. You've got to sort through the garbage to actually realize that sketchbooks are just simply that. They're random ideas that, on page 10 of each one will be a gem. But then I can go back and rework ideas as well. And sometimes I'll go back, 3 or 4 years to older sketchbooks and relook at them and revisit them as well. Because it can take a while to get something to work. It's not everything, and you don't expect everything to work for the first time.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. We don't want to put ourselves under pressure to be able to get everything's not going to be the best idea in the world. And I can come up with many more bad ideas than good ideas. But it's a matter of working out why they're not working. What structurally, what is it, the idea, or is it the composition, or how can you retell a story a different way? And what there's a real value with the sketchbook to be able to, unlike the computer, where you can just leave it. It has to be left, and then you can move on. Sometimes it's very easy in the computer just to simply keep on going until something's overfinished or overcooked. Is a really good way. It's like mum's cabbage. Starts off green, ends up brown. And look, that's, I think let the loose ideas, let them come in and enjoy them, because I think we were talking earlier about AI. Sometimes AI gives you a finished product which has its place, but the fun is creating the ideas and having bad ideas, good ideas, mediocre ideas. And we're at a place now where it's very easy to go online and just simply see good ideas and spectacular ideas all the time. And you start to end up in a false world of what is perfection, and underneath is the sketchbook, where I can make the mistakes, and they're my mistakes.
Yeah,
they're meant to be there.
That's right, and that's part of your experimentation.
Yeah, it has to be, and that's I think we can't lose the value of the experimentation.
No, and play.
Yeah. So by the time I've worked up the idea in the sketchbook, and I'm happy with the concept in that, when I start painting, I don't move away from that. And that's one of the things of being an illustrator, is when you presented the idea to the client and the client signed off with it, then that's the deal. You've done the deal. And for me, that's the same with painting as well. So when I've got my concept locked down, then I won't drift from that. That's my contract with for me as the creative.
Which seems like the way that you often sort of manage your career is having that kind of mentality.
Yeah, and it can be quite, most people find it really rigid, but it works. It works for me,
and
I think
something that works.
Yeah, and isn't that the big thing, is that we've got to find things that work for us rather than trying to work under a formula that someone else has thought up.
Yeah, totally. I think it's brilliant.
And like everything, it needs to be flexible as well. When I say that. Once I get the concept to a place that I'm happy with, that can be several months or a year or 2 years away to actually get that concept happy. So I don't rush the concept.
Yeah,
I like to go back and revisit ideas, and out of an idea can come another idea. And also it's important to be able to go back and to there are many different ways to tell the same story.
How do those stories, are they memories? Are they imagined? Or how do those stories for you develop? And I guess you're happy if the viewer isn't necessarily seeing the same story.
Exactly. And, we all need to bring out our own interpretation to it. So when I write something down, that's how I see it. But we can, what's the truth is my side, your side, and the real side, isn't it? So we all see things from a different way, and I think things can be taken a little bit too seriously, and I enjoy the discipline of painting, but it can't be too serious. Seriously, it can't be too serious. When I guess probably when I look at paintings and sometimes the writing comes first, and actually a really valuable place to start is a painting can start off with an idea, can start off with a headline, and it gets back to being an illustrator where you were given a headline and you would read an article and develop the image from there. So in that aspect, language the language has a lot to offer, and I like we've all had funny lives, haven't we? There's always been. We need to bring that humor. I need to bring that humor into my work, and part of that humor is writing. It's one of the things I had a real challenge with was being able to put down my thoughts as words, just to be able to construct a sentence, to construct a paragraph was really. I always found that really tough. I mean, I can write. I guess bullet points would be a good place to start, and from there I can develop a theme from there. But I'm painfully slow at writing and painting. There's people would look at my paintings and say, surely you could paint that in a couple of weeks. And you see, again, you go online and see people creating these incredible paintings in what looks like days. But for me, writing and painting take a long time.
Yeah, and they go together.
Yeah, they do, because one definitely helps explain the other for me.
You are represented by Parnell Gallery, and they're having your show next in 12 days' time, as we said.
Is it that close?
It's that close, but you're okay because you've done all your work.
I'm done. I'm
You're
all
done.
good. Yeah.
You're on the next artwork. So that's the 12th of November, and that's the opening night from 5:30, and that goes to the 26th of November, 2024. Can't wait to see that show. I'll be at opening.
Fantastic.
And you're also represented by Boyd and Dunlop, which is
yes,
Napier.
Richard Boyd. Him and his mother do a fabulous job down there. And Napier's a beautiful city as well. I love
Napier. Yeah. And Flagstaff Gallery in Devonport.
Yes, and they're the three galleries that, although I only do an exhibition at the Parnell Gallery because simply I just don't do enough work. I just don't paint enough work. And it is when you don't have many paintings, which is the prints, which is why the prints are so valuable.
Yeah, the prints, I guess, are your sort of bread and butter.
Yes,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
very much so.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about pricing?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's, what, money and artists is such artists hate to talk about money. Money's always, I think, for us something which is challenging. But how do you price your artwork? It's always a tough thing, isn't it? And also, I guess the expectation is, how are you going to make a living as an artist? It's one of those questions which people, I guess, struggle with. There's how commercial do you want to get? For me, working as an illustrator, I'd already done a deal with the devil, apparently, by selling my artwork as an illustrator. But for me, it's a job. This is my career. The paintings are part of my job, and my job is to sell artwork. Or not my job, that's the gallery's job. And I think that's a commercial reality for me. So, and I was always aware of that right from the start. There's no other way that I don't have any other way of making money. So this is it. Yeah. And your pricing, I guess, is always a challenge, but the prints certainly help. And the printing is part of the business that I really enjoy. I love the process of the printing. Because having a background in design as well, I could do the packaging. I make up all the individual packaging for the editions that go off. And sometimes I'm in the studio by 6 a.m. to get everything done. And it's the prints haven't become a burden on my my painting, and I think that's a key thing as well. So I haven't let that part of the business run away. So that's always manageable because I only do 49 prints. And again, I didn't want to flood the market. It's really nice to have collectors that have started off buying the limited editions that have then gone on to buy original paintings. So there is a real value in that for me.
Absolutely. So Ross, it's time for our questions. So what do you think of as your biggest challenge as an artist?
The biggest challenge as an artist, I think, aside from the making of the money part, because that is a challenge, that it's always a challenge. My biggest challenge is that I'm running out of time to paint all the ideas that I want to do. And the past 20 years has gone by so fast, and I think I have another 20 years left. And looking at it like that, it's like now I still want to be able to get out and to visit places and that, but you do realize that there's only a certain amount of time left, and investing 3 or 4 months of your time to each and every painting it becomes a real commitment. So I think for the first time, I'm starting to realize how valuable time is, because it's not something that we can replace. So I I want to be able to, I want to get through the 100 paintings and then I can start the final 50 and see how that goes. And there again, it's like I might get through. I hope I get through them, but that's the goal. So we can put that stick in the sand and go from here. Let's try and get another 50 out and see what happens.
So good. And it's such a fantastic legacy you're leaving.
But there's only that's a problem though, isn't there's just when you realise that there's just not enough time.
Yeah, and as you get older, you're a bit more aware of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I do part of my practice is every day I do Pilates. So I do Pilates from either a 20-minute online class or a 30-minute online class, and it's to keep my back in good order and my shoulders in good order, because it's really easy to develop a really bad posture. And just if I've noticed anything over the past years, it's just been that sitting hunched over the easel that would be what's taken a toll for sure. So I'm starting to live clean.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what would you say to your younger artistic self?
You made the right decision going back to design school. I mean, that was a real easy one, because it would have been easy to go off traveling overseas and take other directions, but going back to design school was the good decision for me. And sticking with it, it's really easy to drift off into different directions as an artist to go off on tangents with materials or ideas or whatever. But for me, it's been key to be able to stick with the story for 100 paintings, and I think that's above all that's been the right decision for me.
Yeah. Can you see your final 50 being a continuation of what you're doing
Absolutely now? No change from here. That's it. I'm comfortable with the direction I'm taking. So.
And you've still got so many ideas within what you do.
Yeah, and you know what? There's going to be probably a few surprises along the way, and that I think that's part of the journey as well. But I know the direction I want to take. So, and I think for me, there's a real sense of value in that I can look back and see the paintings and how they've progressed. And there's been no big revolutions. This is a slow evolution within the process for me.
Which artists inspire you?
Oh, look, I've got it with the internet now. It's really easy to jump online and find a new favorite every day, every week. But definitely my favorites have been the Wyeth family in the States, Andrew and his, I think his father or grandfather, N.C. Wyeth. I mean, their work is just stunning. Hopper, Winslow Homer. Locally, I always remember going to an exhibition in Wellington and seeing Rita Angus's work in person, and she was just, for me, I looked at her work and went, Robin White again. It's just like I looked at the work and thought this was just some of the most beautiful work I'd ever seen. But, for me, it's big ideas. Colour is hugely important. I love the style of these artists, and also I love their finish. You see their work and you look at it and go, that's what I would like my work to be.
And why do you make the kind of work you make?
I'm not sure whether you get a choice on this. Do we don't? I don't think I've ever had a choice. It's just it's when you write or when you pick up a pen and you make a mark, that is your mark. And I think the artwork flows out of that. If someone makes me sit down and I probably imagine a class of 30 people and everybody had to draw a pot, and everybody has their own style. We have our style, I would like to think that my work is not copied from another source. I derive my work from other sources, but when I sit down, the ideas that come up are mine. So, and it's interesting online. I've found in the past 6 months or so that I've had comments of, do you use AI to generate your ideas? And I had 6 images up in Instagram, and they were the rocket paintings, and they go back to 2012, and it was really hard to be able to write and say, well, I did this in 2012 before AI was born. But that's the reality now, is when people, and particularly younger people, see work online, that their initial interpretation is that it's AI or it's AI generated, and that is going to be a challenge, I think, of how we interpret that in the future.
Yeah.
It's here, and, we will work with it rather than
it's a tool.
Dominate. But there again, it's like, enjoy the process. And I enjoy the process of drawing, painting, and producing artwork rather than jumping on the computer and the computer tells me what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm too old to learn, which is great.
Who cares? Thank goodness.
Exactly. It gets back to that whole thing of who cares. And if someone writes online that your work looks as if it's AI generated, well, then that's their issue. Go for it.
Exactly. Yeah, so interesting. Oh, well, Ross, it's been so lovely to chat to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
It's been a great conversation, and I've picked up a few quite interesting concepts and ideas that I'm sure all of us will go away and think about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And come to my exhibition. Everybody's welcome.
Yes, we hope we'll see heaps of listeners there after hearing your amazing story. And I can't wait for the show. So all the best for that. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.